afternoon. Welcome to Healthy Lifestyle. I'm Lori-Ann Casdia. Our goal here at Healthy Lifestyle is to inspire, educate, and empower you to fulfilling a healthy, emotional, spiritual, and physical life so you can feel empowered to live the life you have always wanted and dreamed. We should definitely lift each other up with encouragement and positivity because we are here to serve each other. So what is your intention for your week? What are you going to do to make it better than last week? And there are 5 questions I've spoken to you about that I want you to ask yourself if you really want to transform your life. And it really starts here by asking yourself, what do you really want just for yourself? And what has to happen in order to create this change? What steps of inspired actions are you willing to take? And how much pain will you experience if you don't make these changes? And then, of course, as always, ask yourselves, how can I be of service? All that is definitely in line with our guest today. Dr. David Pollack has been with us in the past, and we appreciate that. He is the owner and director of clinical services for the Pollack Wellness Institute and Weight Loss Center. Dr. Pollack specializes in the practice of physical rehabilitation, herbal and nutritional medicine, and stress management. He has extensive experience in assisting in healing digestive disorders, joint and muscle pain, headaches, hormonal imbalances, autoimmune conditions, and many other common health concerns through practices such as chiropractic, combined with techniques such as acupuncture and nutritionalist-led diet changes, which we will talk about today. He's published articles in many periodicals and frequently lectures at corporations and organizations across Long Island. I really recommend you bring him into your organization. He can definitely help your staff. His goal is to help as many people as he can to reach optimal health and avoid the, air quote, sick care system. Yeah, we all want to avoid that, don't we, David?
Thanks for having me on, Lori.
No worries. My pleasure. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Everybody's talking about vaccines today.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah, let's talk about that.
Everybody's kind of freaking out. I didn't know if I was going to talk about it or not.
Yeah, we definitely should talk about that. I have some friends who are struggling with that. They are being forced to have their children vaccinated. Otherwise, they have to homeschool.
Yeah, so I have a lot of people that I know are talking about homeschooling. They're trying to create these groups now. I just find it just like most moms, it seems, that I'm talking to that are concerned on this issue, that it's a little suspect when you have a whole system that has complete immunity forcing things upon us. And if it's so safe, why do they need immunity? And I just don't get it. I don't get it.
I don't get it either. I just, we should have a little bit of free will here to do what we want. So how do you balance that? How do you keep people protected? I, of course, immunized my kids because at the time that's what we did. But then as I learned and became a more informed adult, there were a lot of things that we were supposed to do or told we had to do that I wasn't in alignment with and agreement with. And I took other avenues so that I didn't have to do something that was not okay with me. And I have a concern, of course, for my kids. Not to say that the people making these laws don't have a concern for children and for the population, but I think it should be my choice as a parent. What are your thoughts on that?
Oh, man, we could talk about this forever.
Well, let's do it because it's really topical, and I'd love to talk about it.
It's right now, and I actually wasn't going to talk about it, but I can't even hold it in at this point. But there's a couple different conversations we can have around this. So one that I'm thinking about is around, some people are going to choose and there might be no option or openings to vaccinate. And there's some strategies that you might take in order to do that as safely as possible and build up your child's immunity as much as possible during that process and spread out the vaccines and whatnot. And there's ways to do that. The other is, I don't know if we're going to talk about it too deeply, but the ones that are homeschooling and just avoiding the system altogether or moving to another state. There's an exodus going on from New York, both for tax reasons as well as vaccine reasons.
They're giving lots of reasons for us to leave the state, this great state that we live in.
Yeah, I don't blame people at all with the high taxes and whatnot for not necessarily the best services.
I I actually don't mind the high taxes, although I'd love to pay less. But when they start talking about taking away my choices like this, I have a really hard time with it. I'm really wrestling with it. I mean, my children are older now, so I don't have that immediate need. But one day I'm going to have grandchildren. Right? And we're going to have this law in place.
Hey, we're in this state. I wouldn't mind either paying the high taxes, but, you look at a place like Florida, there's no state income tax, and everything is more beautiful than here. And I'm not talking about the trees. I'm just, how do they make a road? How do they make a building? How do they make a sign? It's, with so much less tax income, they're doing so much more, and it doesn't make any sense. But that's a different topic altogether. With this situation right now, I can't wrap my head around why, for a nothing disease like measles, which makes a rash, and yes, there's a infinitesimally small percentage of people that might not make it through it, like people don't make it through all sorts of things, and I'm sorry about that, but now we're creating a risk for a much larger amount of people, using things that are really not well understood, not studied, not researched, and there is no trials that are long-term whatsoever. This is complete nonsense, that these things are safe. And then trying to force it upon people when there's this giant outbreak. Do you even hear about that outbreak anymore? It's over. It's done.
Is it done? Is it done? Because there was a big outbreak on Staten Island and down in Jersey.
Either way, so what? Some people had a rash. That's what you get. And you have a fever and you get over it.
They were touting, the worst case scenarios, as they do. They always go to the
global extinction event. They actually have a mass measles outbreak in Europe that nobody talks about at all. And it's hundreds of thousands of people, not just hundreds. And it's being contained because these things go in cycles just like everything else. And there's, a certain year that the measles will be stronger, and maybe we're getting versions of it that we're not used to from other countries through immigration and things like that.
But travel.
That's completely uncontrolled at this point. There's typhus in California. Nobody's talking. That's a serious disease, and that was brought in from Central and South America recently, and that's a big deal.
So how does this differ from, the measles outbreak, air quotes, how does that differ than the different flu strains that we have? I find that more alarming than the measles, but that's just me. Well,
flu's going to be different every year.
Yeah. Sometimes it's stronger.
They've even admitted that vaccines, doesn't do
useless.
Mostly anything.
Right.
And it's hysterical to me when they even say the stats on TV. They're like, this one's 24% effective, which of course is an inflated number. That's as high as they can push it. But you should get it even more now because you need it more, and I don't understand. I would never play a casino game at that odds.
True,
that makes sense.
That's a good point.
I want to at least be close to 50-50.
Yeah.
And then next year you need another one because it changes. And if you got the flu once, it's awful. And then you get better, and then you don't get the flu for 20 years. Who cares? But
you're at risk. Your seniors, your infants. Mm-hmm. What do we do with that? Because again, they always look at the percentage of fatalities. They push us into this corner where they're using these really dynamic languages that scare you.
So, when they try to bring those numbers up, those are populations of people that are going to get probably sick anyway. They have comorbidities. They don't really have the greatest health already. And I don't mean to sound cold with the situation, but something is going to get a lot of those people.
How do they not negatively react to those shots then?
And of course they do. So I have plenty of patients over the years, astronomical numbers that have at some point may have chosen to get vaccinated with flu vaccines and shingles vaccines and all these things. And
I've had shingles when I was younger.
We're going to go back to shingles. Actually, that's one of my favorite examples of some of the problems with vaccines. And I'm not saying there's no value to any of these things, but it's a decision for people to make for themselves.
But I think it should be an option.
How is an unvaccinated person going to hurt this effective vaccinated person? They have supposedly very effective vaccines, and who cares if I'm choosing to take that risk? Why is that an issue to the vaccinated people? It shouldn't be at all.
Because they're vaccinated, they shouldn't be exposed, correct?
Fine.
Theoretically.
So the people who are choosing not to, we've taken that risk, and we're responsible people for our own thing. We're not going to sue anybody. It's not the school's responsibility or the government's. If I get sick, I get sick. If I don't make it, that was my choice, unfortunately.
Right.
I don't
sign a waiver. They can have the penalty. parents sign a waiver.
Have the downside of the autoimmune diseases that seem to be springing up as a result of this, of the genetic defects. We're not even looking at. Everybody thinks about the now and what's happening to me now, and did my child have an immediate reaction to the vaccine? That's the really obvious stuff, but the really not obvious stuff is what happens 1, 2, 3, 4 generations from now with changes in our DNA and whatnot. Things are not so innocuous as they're making them to be, and things like vaccine. My favorite ingredient is not what everybody's talking about with the preservatives and not. It's recombinant human DNA that's put in these things, human proteins that have been altered and manufactured. And that's certainly a religious issue for many, many people. But people don't realize that that's a major ingredient in many vaccines because they don't grow them on eggs anymore. They actually grow them on human tissue that's been genetically modified. And that's what's really happening. You're being injected with that, and don't think that's not becoming part of your own genome, because it's basic science in the DNA world that you absorb pieces and fragments of DNA into your own digestive tracts, and it becomes part of your body. I'm not saying it influences every cell, but some cells are being changed. And what if it's the wrong cell?
Wow.
Now we got a problem.
Yeah, we do. And
this stuff is not studied. Nobody knows what's going to happen. Think 2 generations from now. We're not even thinking about it. Just think about my life, but that's the smallest problem that's going on. What about your grandkids' life?
Yeah.
And their kids? Maybe they're all going to be, one of the things they look for. They don't do this with humans because our lifespan's too long, but when you do animal testing, they look, is there fertility after several generations? Can they even reproduce anymore as a result of this drug or this thing? And they don't look at that with humans, and it's very, very scary.
Oh, wow.
Very, very scary.
So I'm just totally taken aback. Totally, I had no idea. I thought it was always egg-based. That it was still egg-based.
I'm sure some is, but they're moving away from that. That's too expensive.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Our health is only at risk. No worries here. Yeah, it's it befuddles me. Have them sign a waiver. So, I'm in marketing, and I use numbers all the time. And when I do research, if I want to back up a position, I can find a position to back me up no matter what the topic is. So the same with the numbers. If they're saying, oh, it's 24, I'm sure I can find articles and information, and we'll say scientific information that backs up my side of the story, but they don't want to listen to it. What do you think the impetus is of this? Because again, what I can't wrap my head around is the people who are choosing not to get immunized are the ones who may or may not get sick. The people who are choosing to get immunized are not affected by the people who aren't getting immunized. So why are they using, plague type things other than, of course, the opportunity for money? Yeah. I'm
sure there's money moving around. There's no way that it's not. There's a pretty big lawsuit coming up right now. The same people who took down Monsanto recently are going after New York State, and they're following the money, and there seems to be some interesting information there. I'm not going to talk about that now, but
so there is a lawsuit coming out about
this.
There's
multiple.
Yeah. So
there's multiple.
When I was discussing it with a friend of mine who is struggling with this decision, my initial out of the box was there's going to be a lawsuit. Wait, don't do anything, because the people who are jumping and doing it because they're being told to do it, but they don't really want to do it, are doing it so that their kids could go back into school. So they hold that over the parent's head. Where's the equitability of that?
There is none. There's none. So it's over my head too. So we have to figure out what we're doing with our son.
How old is your son?
7.
Oh, so now I understand why it's very top of mind.
Well, it's I can't even avoid it. I have so many people coming in and talking about it. People are freaking out, emails and texts, and what do you do? I'm like, I don't know yet. We're watching and sort of figuring it out. We were scared about camp, and they don't seem to care. So.
Yeah, they encompassed camps with purpose.
Yes, because that doesn't matter. Those kids are immune. None of it makes any sense. That's why the whole that makes people even more angry, is that the rules actually don't make sense, which makes everybody suspect and question this sort of situation.
Well, it contradicts itself through the action. It doesn't make sense, and they pushed it really quickly. So I always like to know what was behind it. And I haven't been able to find or discover the answer to that. Like, what's behind this sudden, oh my God, we have to do it right now because we had some outbreaks. I get it.
That are
but
not
again,
even talked about anymore.
No, it was barely talked about to begin with.
It's gone.
Yeah. Yeah. So those outbreaks don't exist anymore.
I'm not saying that.
Right.
I don't know. There's certainly measles cases, and
There's always been measles cases, though.
It doesn't matter. It's going to evolve over time, and that's one of the things you're seeing with viruses in general. Is they're going to they want to live. These things want to exist, and they will figure their way around the vaccines eventually, and they'll mutate into new forms, and it might take 10 years, it might take 40 years for things like that to happen. Influenza mutates very, very quickly, and that's why every year you need a new one. But other viruses, there are longer cycles, and historically it wasn't just things come and go, just like the locust is every 7 years, 10 years, and these things have cycles too, and you're going to see no matter what you do, they will come around and get people eventually. And is the downside, and I'm not making a decision for everybody, I would never force my opinion on everybody, but is the downside to the vaccines significantly worse on a population scale, forget even the individual scale, than the benefit? And we don't know the answer to that question, and we probably won't for a little while, and hopefully it's not as scary as some of the predictions are.
So I'm wondering if it's a wait and see type thing for people to make decisions.
Is scary.
Yeah.
Because we're playing a lab experiment on the world.
We are, but we're mandating people to do things otherwise and scaring people. And I just really have a problem with that when they can't back it up with significant scientific evidence. And the fact that it has been taken into consideration over generations, not just this particular second because somebody had an idea.
Public health knows that the major thing that stops disease spread and outbreaks is self-quarantine. I don't mean like quarantine, like scary quarantine. I mean people staying in their house and not going out, being clean and washing their hands and having septic systems and sanitation. And that's what really ended the scourge of disease in this country. It wasn't vaccines. It was cleanliness. It was having sanitation that you can watch when public sanitation started to be really, rolled out in the early 1900s, like 100 years ago. That's when everything started to disappear. That's what did it. That's the biggest factor of all. And again, I'm not saying there's no utility to vaccines. I'm not making that statement. I don't know. I don't really know the answer to that question. But there certainly is a question as to what the real repercussions and downside with this massive autoimmune disease rates that are going on, and massive, autism and learning difficulty issues, and it's really scary. It's really, really scary.
Yeah, I'd like to understand why now. To me, why now is this legislation put through? I mean, we've known about it for a while.
Probably a plan for a while. Who knows? The dictator of New York signed it within minutes of it passing, which is unusual for most bills. It doesn't generally happen.
Yeah. You talking the governor?
Yeah, one of those guys.
Okay. One of those guys. Yeah, I hear you. I just don't know. I mean, and shingles, let's circle back to shingles for a second. That's a derivative of
chickenpox.
Chickenpox, right?
Yeah, so and I had shingles is awful, and
yeah, it was not pleasant.
It's one of the vaccines. I have some older people that ask me about it, and I say, that's one of the few that, I hope the vaccine's actually effective, and it is. You're not having kids anymore. You're not developing anymore. Something about it makes sense, and you have to make your own decision about that. I find utility to that, potentially a light life, post 50. Yeah. Post-fertility shingles vaccine. You're not passing it on. Damaged DNA potentially to kids. But what I am seeing, and I'm not saying in huge amounts, but I never saw or heard of this when I was younger, but the kids that got the chickenpox vaccine, I see some of them getting shingles. At 30. And who has shingles at 30?
Me.
You did. But, did you know another person that had that? No. I never heard of it.
No, I was like the only.
But I've seen many.
Matter of fact, to the point where it was a documented case.
Yeah.
They actually journaled it.
Now it's regular.
Yeah, now it's normal.
Now it's regular. So.
And it's really uncomfortable because it's your nerve endings come up to the top of the skin, and everything, like even the brush of a sheet was agonizing until it went away. Yeah. And it goes away. It goes away. Like
everything else.
But I had it like on the side and on my ankle.
Yeah.
2 places. And it was not comfortable.
But to have, I could say I've seen more than one easily in the past 5 years than 10. It's usually about 30-year-old it's 30-year-old people, and they had the vaccine, and it's coming back around again.
Yeah, I don't even know if I had the vaccine, but I know I never got I never got chickenpox when I was a kid, and that's why I got shingles, and that's what the doctor said. And he goes, "Suck it up, you're going to be uncomfortable.
You'll be all right.
You'll be okay." He gave me a topical to best handle it, and moved me on. And it wasn't a national crisis, and no laws were made about it.
You itch for a week.
It's true. You are listening to Healthy Lifestyle. I'm Lori-Ann Casdia. We will be right back. Welcome back to Healthy Lifestyle. I am Lori-Ann, your host. And if you have any questions, comments, or ideas on topics, guests, anything, just send us an email, healthylifestylewithla@gmail.com, and we will happily respond to your requests. Also, follow us on social media at Healthy Lifestyle with LA. We are here talking with Dr. Pollack, and we're having a very lively conversation about vaccinations, the do's, the don'ts, because of a recent legislation that just got really quickly signed up in Albany. And, we were just talking about shingles and things like that. And I don't know if I shared this with you, but I had gotten shingles I think it was in my 30s. It was late 20s, early 30s. I hadn't gotten chickenpox. My mom tried everything to get me to catch chickenpox when I was little, and I just wouldn't catch them. It just didn't matter. We basically pushed people with chickenpox in the same room with me to try to get me to catch them, and I just didn't catch them. But I did get shingles. Not fun at all.
No.
So with that said, we've been talking about these vaccinations and whether or not we should have them, and I just don't understand why there's such a rush, and that always concerns me. Anytime somebody makes somebody make a decision right away, it's like, why can't it wait? It's waited this long. The outbreaks have been going on for months now. Like you had said, I haven't heard anything about any of them 4 months now. So what can we do to protect ourselves, regardless of what our positioning is with vaccinations, from a health aspect? What can we do to protect ourselves, to make our bodies stronger so we can fight off these different strains? Because like you said, whatever the strain of whatever the bacteria, they are going to try to find a way to mutate to come and have a host.
They want to live.
Yep.
They always want to live. Let's definitely talk about what to do to make your body as strong as possible.
Yes.
And then that's in either scenario. If you get vaccinated, don't get vaccinated, whatever you want to live on the moon, whatever your option is.
No taxes up there yet.
Probably it's coming. Before that, though, I just thought of one last thing to add to this. I have some friends that have houses on the water and things like that, and you want to remove one tree or put one rock somewhere. The studies and inspections and whatnot that needs to be done. True.
Feasibility studies,
oh my God,
impact
years
studies
that go by just to make a little change on your property if you live near the water. And now we're going to make this massive obligation to people with our health, and
it's a mandate.
And no study went through for this vote.
It's a mandate.
There was none. Yeah,
it was a mandate.
Just a little interesting. It just came to my mind.
That's a really good point. Really good point. You would think that they would have years of studies before they made something like this.
There's very few. It's all empirical. Either way, so what we're really talking about is functional wellness.
Yes,
so
on a more positive note.
And it should be positive because your body is amazing and it has the capability of dealing with all these things. And it's not everybody that has side effects. It's not what we're talking about. Right. And the stronger you are, the less likely you are to have those problems. Right. And I want to be as strong as I possibly can. I want my son, my family, my friends, everybody, all my patients. We want to be tough. We want to be personally responsible for our health and personally responsible for the outcome of our lives.
Well, it's actually one of the things we can control if we make the right choices.
We have a lot of input, a lot of control on what's going to go on. And that doesn't just mean not eating gluten. That's just one little nothing. And I don't mean it's a nothing, but that's a small potato, and we'll use that to describe what function really is.
Is that a gluten pun?
It's a gluten pun.
Nice.
So wellness is not just getting on the right medications for your blood pressure and cholesterol problems. It's not having blood pressure and cholesterol problems and whatever else it might be. It's not just finding, the one herb even that you can take to deal with that problem on a long run. It's trying to eliminate that problem and have your body function the way it's supposed
optimally.
To. And for most people, we had at least a point in our life that our body was running really well and didn't have any problems, and we needed no input, and you could probably eat whatever the heck you wanted at that point.
Yeah.
And you felt great, and it didn't matter what you did. And that was when your body's function, which is the most important thing in regards to your health, was really high. So it could tolerate all the garbage we ate in the 70s, 80s, 90s. And it didn't matter so much. And I'm not saying that any of that food was a good idea, but when the function was really high, all these little things don't matter so much. We can manage it. Your body can deal with it.
Right.
And as the function lowers, all of a sudden the sensitivities start coming in, and the stomach aches and the thyroid problems and whatever else.
Is that why as we get older, we get all these little ailments that are just annoying as could be? So
some people called it aging. I don't really like to think about it that way. I like to think about it as time has elapsed, and time has elapsed with some stress and dysfunction. And as the stress and the dysfunction moves on over time, it likes to build up and spread and become bigger and bigger, and damage will happen as a result of that, because stress in its biggest definition, which certainly includes emotional stress, really important, but stress on the biological scale is certainly the emotional. It's also the chemical. What sort of things are we exposed to, good and bad, and then it's the physical. How are we dealing with our body? Are we beating it up? Are we taking care of it? Do we have bad posture? Do we, how's your gait? Is your foot hurt? Whatever it is, all those three things are the major forms of stress: the physical, the chemical, and the emotional. Really, to your body, it's all the same. It's some sort of damage, some sort of negative influence that has to deal with. And if you have stress in that bigger, general context for periods of time that we call aging, it's going to break us down. But if we control that stress, or even reverse that stress, there's good and bad stresses. Like yoga is a good physical stress in most scenarios, right? Good nutrition is a good stress. Things can heal. And that's really what it's all about, is our good stress more than our bad stress over time. So it's not just about that one moment you decided to be gluten-free all of a sudden when you turn, 45, and now I'm going to be gluten-free because it's really popular and I don't like the little bump on my belly. And certainly that's a good idea. I don't tell people not to do that. But they're like, why isn't everything better now?
Right, yeah.
Because that's just one little bit of stress that we're talking about, and there's probably other things happening in the body to deal with that. And is this really what's really the big picture? And the big picture is the function has changed. Did you always have to avoid that gluten? For most people, probably not.
Right.
They ate plenty of bread for most of their life and never knew anything good or bad about it. Right? Because it was tolerated and the body can function and deal with that. Gluten really is just a protein. And all proteins are made out of amino acids. So if your digestion was really strong, you should be able to tear that protein apart into amino acids, and really nobody's allergic to amino acids. And if you did that, you would have no reaction to it.
Right.
Now, I'm not talking about extreme celiacs, which most people are not born celiac. It's an autoimmune disease that's developed over your lifetime. And even that situation can change. Autoimmune disease is something that if you do the right thing and create the right positive stress scenario for long enough, it's not an overnight process. Right. The body can often heal itself.
It's a balance.
Or at least improve itself. So I have people that were diagnosed gold standard celiacs that can tolerate some wheat. That doesn't mean they can eat bread all day long or anything like that, but they now don't have to wear a gas mask going to a party.
Yeah.
They can really deal with it. And plenty of people that knew if they had gluten, they're bloated out of their mind and their joints hurt and they can't think straight, and the brain fog and the weight gain and all that stuff, that no longer have those reactions to it, because it's about function. The biggest thing is function. What can we do to improve our body's function? Not just put ourselves in a bubble like this room.
Right. I like my bubble.
With 6 different foods that they can barely tolerate.
Yeah.
And try to move on. Like I have a patient of mine with colitis right now.
Been there, done that.
Keeps coming up with us. And he is on one of the most extreme strict diets I've ever heard someone do for a prolonged period of time. And he's not even, I'm talking about before we started working together. And he's like literally blending every meal because otherwise he's in awful agony. He's only in medium agony with the blended food, but at least it's not awful. And now it's been a couple weeks, and now I have him back on real food, and he's so happy. And, because we're improving the function, not just putting him in this bubble of some insane FODMAP diet and whatever other AIP diet and all those things. And they're useful things. I don't want to say there's anything bad about those diets, but in their
moderation,
they're tools. They're tools, yes. And they should not be used as sometimes you have to. I don't want to say that there's no one that has to be on an AIP or FODMAP diet in the long run, or some variation of that. But I often just use it as a tool to do the proper healing so that we can get the function back, and then move you back to a real diet.
Yes,
be a real person.
Yes.
I want to be a real person. This
is what, I look at these things, and I want to see that the actions I'm taking, whether it's, the D word, diet, or if it's, different nutritional intake, or it's medicines or whatever, it's temporary to deal with the acute situation, so that long term my body heals itself, because our bodies are made to do that if we keep it in balance, and that's the big thing, and if we reduce the stress, right? Hey,
they have the program to make our body right. It's in there. Right, the whole
it's brilliant.
The whole plan's in there.
Yeah, it's brilliant. Just like what we're supposed to do with our lives. It's in there. You just gotta look.
It's in there. You just have to let it work, and that's what it is. So when the damage is when the inflammation, and that's really what we're talking about, is up to a certain level, it is its own thing at that point. It sometimes separates from its cause, why we have our inflammation and the inflammation itself. And when it gets that big, it's a big snowball rolling. And that's where our autoimmune diseases really are coming from. And that snowball can be broken up too.
But does that explain why, and I'm going to use the word suddenly, it may not be suddenly for some people, but suddenly, like, so many people have a peanut allergy, when I was growing up, there was no such thing.
Come on.
No such thing.
Well, it's amazing. It's amazing. Where is that allergen really coming in when you figure it out, and where we're getting it from? But I think it's just at this point in time, we're exposed to so many inflammation producing substances at the same time. You're never going to find one thing is doing it all. It's really the preponderance of all of it, plus the stress.
Well, add stress to it. Yeah, just to add stress. It's like adding water. Stress is a major element I found personally. The removal of it makes everything function better. And then attention to diet and trying to get that balance back, both mind and physical and spiritually, that absolutely helps. It's amazing. It really works. It really works.
Oh, yeah.
I know I'm a flag waver here on this stuff, but I really, really know, because firsthand I've experienced it. I've been stressed to the max, almost to the point where, I was almost on my deathbed because I was in so much pain and so much agony and on so many levels, and said, that's it, I'm done, I'm not doing this. But done in a way that I'm not throwing in the towel, but I'm going to find resources and avenues to take care of this, because this vessel needs to last me many, many years.
Oh, yeah. And how good are those years going to be?
Yeah, they're going to be outstanding.
Yeah, I want to feel great when I'm 70.
Yeah.
80, why not? I had one guy I was working with, he was 80, he would go up on the roof. The guy was just a workaholic, and why? I want to be like him.
Yeah. God bless.
Back to function, though, there's a lot of different perspectives to this, and I try to really think about it simply and then basically and biologically. So, the most basic thing our body does is digest.
Right.
That's it. Every organism does it. That's how we get our nutrition. That's how we build our body. It's how we repair. It's how everything comes to being, and everything else is just like a secondary to that, as a layer on top of it. And if you can't digest your food, which means you have indigestion, heartburn, reflux, even just a little bloating, that's bad digestion. A lot of bloating. Your belly blows up after you eat. Can't go to the bathroom too much. The stool is not formed right. Those are all digestive problems. There's digestive problems you don't feel too. So you might just have like a little tickle in your throat, or a cough, or you're clearing your throat all the time, or sinuses, or postnasal drip. Those all can potentially be digestive problems.
Okay.
And if you have a digestive problem, your body's not at its most basic level functioning well. It doesn't matter what other advanced thing might be happening, neurotransmitter imbalances, hormones, lymphatic issues. All this stuff is tiny problems compared to a digestive problem. And no matter how mild that digestive problem might seem, it needs to be taken care of. And that's always step one, in at least my process. Okay. So I'm always helping people optimize their digestion, make sure it's functioning at its highest level. And often that clears up some of the more advanced problems in many cases. But sometimes we have to go out after those things. So after digestion, which certainly is helping with inflammation, we got to find out what's making inflammation in somebody's body. Where is it coming from? So digestion is number one. It always is. That's the number one reason to have inflammation. Every time you eat, if you're getting bloated or heartburn or anything, you're making inflammation. How many times do you eat a day?
3.
3. So 3 times a day.
Although my son insists that I should be 6 small meals.
Too much work.
Who has time?
Who has that time? But,
who has time?
You know, if you're eating 3 meals a day, that might be 3 times a day you're producing massive amounts of inflammation. That doesn't just stay in your stomach. It goes in that magic bloodstream and floats around your body and hits whatever your body's weak spot is, which is typically determined by genetics or whatever injuries you might have. So finding out what's producing inflammation, be it your stomach or your liver or your cortisol imbalances or your bum shoulder or your bad knee, these are sources of inflammation. And the inflammation doesn't just stay locally. It moves around your body and affects lots and lots of things. And it's that buildup of inflammation that turns into other problems.
So that's what you mean when you speak about functional wellness. You want to have functional wellness. So
it's about your body's, and even breaking that down into smaller units, your organs, and then you can break that down to even the smaller units, the tissues and the cells and even the subcellular structures. Are they working right? So like people, you know, not to get too advanced, but people talk about mitochondrial disorders. Is my mitochondria working well? So,
I'm sorry, do I have one of those?
You have one.
Oh, what is that?
So that's the powerhouse of your body's cells. It's what makes your energy, your ATP. Huh. It actually has its own DNA, which is different from you. It's weird, right?
Really?
So it's almost like there's a bacteria inside of us.
That's pretty cool. There's lots of them inside of us.
But this is part of you, and it comes from your mother's side always.
Why always the mom? Why are we always picking on the mom?
It's the mom. And it makes your energy. And some people certainly, and I bet you've heard of CoQ10. You know?
Yes, I have.
So CoQ10 works on the mitochondria. That's what it does, which means the statins work on breaking your mitochondria, which is why you need the CoQ10 with it to make sure your body's still making energy using oxygen. That's where the oxygen is actually used, is in the mitochondria. In the end, that's where it's used.
Wow.
So we talking about even mitochondrial function. Is it working?
So when someone comes to see you, you're going to go through and look at them holistically?
So it's a process. So holistic, I use the word in its most basic setting, the whole.
Yes.
Is this body integral? Is it working together? And just looking at the whole thing. So for example, we were talking about stomach problems. A cough could be a stomach problem, but you wouldn't think of that at first. Right? And your stomach problem might have no stomach type symptoms potentially. Maybe it's your toe hurts. And I'm not even kidding saying that.
I gotcha.
So like, for example, gout can be caused by stomach problems, and there's your toe hurting.
Oh, my. Okay.
All right. The body wasn't processing the food well. The food, that improperly digested food bound up your kidneys, and now you got crystals in your toe.
Do you remember, I don't know if you're old enough, do you remember in science classes in high school, they used to have those really cool movies where they showed these guys like working inside your body with the little hard hats on and stuff like that? They didn't have one of those for this.
For this? Yeah.
For this topic?
We have to make that one. It could be really funny.
Could you? I
bet if we did it would be
to this day, I remember all of those movies because they were hysterical. Thinking that we have all these guys in there like doing that.
You do, and those are called enzymes. Those guys.
Full circle. Well played, Doc. Well played.
Yes. So that's actually my specialty, but those guys are literally enzymes, and those are the proteins in your body that do all the work. They're like little Pac-Men, and they're running around making stuff and breaking stuff apart and fixing things, and they're almost alive, literally. So, and that's really what function's all about, is your body actually manufacturing enough enzymes sufficiently to do everything. And enzymes do everything. They classically, people know they're what digest your food. That's what really breaks down your food. It's not acid, it's enzymes. Acid does nothing. There's plenty of videos on YouTube showing super strong hydrochloric acid doing absolutely nothing to meat, and then they put a little tiny little sprinkle of enzyme, the meat's gone in like 2 hours.
That's pretty cool.
That's pretty awesome.
Google
enzymes
that.
are amazing. They're also what your white blood cells use to destroy viruses and bacteria. It's what your body uses to make hormones and do everything. Having a thought, moving a finger, it's all using enzymes that quickly. So you think about the speed that you're moving your finger. There's enzymes from your brain to your finger.
And that's an area of
firing.
your expertise.
So what I do is I try to figure out what areas of the body are not functioning appropriately, and then we use some standardized combinations of herbs and enzymes to help those areas do their job again, to try to repair them so
Nice.
that they can do their job. Because I don't want people stuck on supplements forever. That's not the goal.
Yeah.
The goal is to repair the body as much as we possibly can.
Love that, so that it functions properly by itself, because we're made to function properly. We do when we're little kids.
We want to do the best we can.
Yes.
Right? That's all it's about.
PollackWellness.com.
You got it.
That's where they should go, get more information,
Sure.
talk to you. I know you do consultations. I think that's great.
We do consultations. So we also have 3 locations now.
Yeah, so you opened Manhattan.
Yeah, we have
Congratulations.
Manhattan, so we're very excited about that. We're a block away from Bryant Park. So we're in Comac, we're in Plainview, we're in Bryant Park, right in the middle of the park. And it's really exciting, and we're helping a lot of people, and I love what I do. And
Excellent.
I'm glad to talk to you about it.
I'm so glad that you do. I'd love to have you back next month so that you can talk specifically on enzymes, because you have my interest piqued, and I've received emails about talk more about enzymes, so we'll do that. Thank you so much for being on again,
Awesome.
David. I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for joining us today on Healthy Lifestyle. Hope you learned a lot. I know I did, and now I want to dive in deeper. My heart is always lifted by sharing this time with you. I want to make sure that you remember to ask yourself how you'll help somebody this week, because that's always important. Do a little something for yourself every day. It starts there. You are the best you, so just go out there and be you. Thank you so much for joining us on Healthy Lifestyle. I'm Lori Ann Casdia. Show up for you and show up big.